Why was the valley so quiet? Commander Marcus Latrell pressed his back against the jagged rocks, the taste of iron heavy in his mouth as blood seeped through his vest. His breathing came shallow, ragged, each inhale laced with pain. 3 hours into a classified reconnaissance mission in Afghanistan's Kunar province, and everything had gone to hell. The silence didn't feel like relief. It felt like the pause before a storm. Lieutenant William McRaven crawled up beside him, dirt and sweat streaking his face. Delta positions compromised. North Ridge has us locked. We're not getting out this way. Around them, the rest of the SEAL team, 4 men who'd lived and bled together through worse odds, returned scattered fire. Each shot sounded desperate, ammunition thinning out like sand slipping through clenched fists. Robert O'Neill, their sharpshooter, slammed a fresh mag into his rifle, his jaw tight with frustration. 30 hostiles at least, maybe more. Heavy machine gun nest chewing us apart. We need a miracle, sir. Latrell knew the brutal math. A SEAL team of 6 against 30 hardened fighters dug into high ground. No reinforcements, no air cover, comms jammed to hell. Minutes, maybe less, before they'd be overrun. He reached for his radio, intent on broadcasting their final coordinates, the kind of call every operator knew by heart but prayed he'd never have to make. His thumb hovered over the transmit key. And then a crack split the valley air, sharp, clean, not from their rifles. O'Neill froze, eyes flicking to his scope. Another crack, another body dropped on the ridge above. What the? McRaven's words were swallowed as the heavy machine gun nest, the one pinning them down, went suddenly silent. The gunner slumped forward, an entry wound dark against his temple. O'Neill scanned frantically through his optics, disbelief carving deep lines into his dirt-smeared face. Those shots, impossible. Wind like this, distance like that, who the hell is out there? A voice crackled faintly over their channel. Not comms, just echo, the kind of whisper the mountains carried. McRaven grabbed the radio. Unknown sniper, identify yourself. No reply. But the valley answered. Another shot, then another. Each one precise, surgical. Enemy fighters dropped like dominoes, confusion breaking their formation. The roar of insurgent fire slackened, panic replacing confidence. Latrell risked a glance over the rocks. Far ridge line barely a shimmer against the sun. A figure moved fluid, ghost-like, not bulky like most operators, lean, quick, a rifle cradled with casual mastery. And then the detail hit him. Long hair, sunlight catching it where it slipped loose from under a faded cap. For a second, even battle-hardened SEALs forgot the bullets. McRaven's voice carried disbelief. That's a woman. The figure shifted again, tucking behind stone, then reappearing with impossible grace. She didn't just shoot, she moved with the mountain, like the terrain bent itself to her rhythm. And then, across 800 yards of dust and gunfire, she looked straight at them. Direct, calm. She raised a hand in a small salute. Then she vanished. Move, Latrell snapped, seizing the moment. His team didn't hesitate. They slipped from their crumbling cover, pushing toward the extraction pass. Behind them, the invisible rifle sang again, dropping pursuers with each crack. Guardian fire, covering fire. By the time the hello rotors thundered over the valley, the insurgents had scattered in terror. And still, Latrell found his eyes pulled back toward the ridges, searching. And there she was, just for a moment. Athletic frame silhouetted against the mountain skyline, rifle slung across her back, tactical scarf hiding most of her face. Then nothing, just the wind. Back at base, the debriefing turned sour with unanswered questions. The intel officer folded his arms, unimpressed. No female snipers are operating in this region. None assigned, none embedded, none in theater. Well, someone sure as hell was up there, O'Neill countered, his voice edged with something between awe and defiance. And whoever she is, she's better than anyone I've ever seen. Period. Latrell stayed quiet. He could still see those eyes across the valley, steady, determined, eyes of someone who'd lived through too much and chosen not to die when the world told her she should. Later that night, McRaven came to him with a file. "You need to see this." Latrell scanned the grainy personnel photo. The face was younger, cleaner, unscarred by the dust and shadows of war, but the eyes were the same. "Alexander Reynolds," McRaven said. "Marine Scout Sniper, declared KIA, same province, 2 years ago." Latrell frowned. "That's not possible, her file says." "Her body was never recovered." Latrell read deeper. "Expert marksman, high-angle mountain warfare, specialized training nobody else had." And then blankness, no recovery, no confirmation, just words on paper. Dead. Except they'd seen her today, alive, breathing, and saving their lives. The next week, Latrell convinced command to approve a reconnaissance sweep through a nearby village. Officially, they were tracking insurgent movement. Unofficially, he was chasing a ghost. The village was small, sun-baked, wary of strangers. But when Latrell spoke of the woman with the rifle, an old man's eyes softened. "Ah," the elder said, voice rough like gravel. "The guardian ghost. She comes and goes with the mountain winds, protects us from the warlords. After her team was slaughtered, she stayed, for us, for the children." McRaven leaned forward. "Her team? What team?" The old man's gaze clouded. "Doctors, healers, they were killed. She alone lived." Later, as they prepared to leave, a child tugged Latrell's sleeve. Small hand pressing something into his palm. A spent casing. Not ordinary brass. Distinctive. Marked. Her mark. That night, camped in the foothills, shadows shifted at the perimeter. Latrell's instincts screamed ambush. He reached for his weapon. And froze. She was there, standing just beyond the firelight, rifle slung casually, a silhouette against the mountain night. Up close there was no mistaking her. Alexandra Reynolds, very much alive. "You should be more careful, Commander," she said softly. Her voice was steady but carried weariness, like each word was weighted by years. "These mountains have eyes." "Why didn't you come in?" Latrell asked. His voice was rougher than he intended. "You're still one of us. You saved my men. You belong with us." Her smile was faint, almost sad. "Am I still one of you? Maybe once. But I found my purpose here. The official story of my death, it gives me freedom. Freedom to protect the people no one else sees." "We can help you," Latrell offered, almost pleading. "You don't have to do this alone." "You already have," she said, nodding toward the distant village lights. "By letting me stay dead in your records, you help me protect them." And then, before he could reply, she was gone, a shadow melting back into shadows. When dawn broke, there was nothing. No footprints, no gear, no trace, except a single casing placed beside his rucksack, her signature, her promise. That day, Latrell filed his report. He wrote only, "Local intelligence inconclusive." But inside, he knew. Some truths aren't meant for paper. Some legends breathe better in silence. And sometimes dignity doesn't speak. It simply acts. Why did she walk away? The question haunted Commander Marcus Latrell long after his team returned to base. He had seen operators make impossible choices, but never this. A Marine, presumed dead, alive in the mountains. Not only alive, but fighting alone, unseen, unclaimed. Saving strangers, saving them. And then leaving, without even asking for recognition. Around the briefing table, the men couldn't shake it either. "She's out there," Robert O'Neill muttered as he cleaned his rifle, his movements sharper than usual. "Operating in our AO like some kind of phantom. Command says she doesn't exist. Intel says she doesn't exist. But I've seen plenty of ghosts, Commander, and none of them fire at 1,000 yards in a crosswind." McRaven leaned back in his chair, silent, thoughtful. He didn't like mysteries in combat zones. Mysteries meant danger. Still, there had been something undeniable about her precision. about her presence. Latrell said nothing. He didn't have to. His silence carried its own weight. Later that night, McRaven cornered him in the corridor. "You want to protect her, don't you? That's why your report was blank." Latrell met his eyes. "She's protecting people. She's protecting us. If command finds out she's alive, they'll drag her back, debrief her, use her until there's nothing left, and the mountains will lose their guardian." McRaven didn't argue. He just let the thought hang there. But the war didn't pause for legends. 2 weeks later, another mission came down. Intelligence pointed to an insurgent weapons convoy moving through the same ridges where Alexandra had appeared. The SEALs were tasked to intercept. The night was cold, the stars sharp above them as the team hiked through jagged passes. Every step crunched against gravel, every breath misted in the thin air. Halfway through their approach, O'Neill froze. He raised his hand, signaling halt. His scope traced faint movement on the ridge above. Latrell crouched beside him. "What is it?" O'Neill's voice was tight. "I saw her. Same build, same silhouette. She's tracking the convoy too." Latrell's pulse quickened. Was she following them, or were they following her? The convoy arrived an hour later. Trucks bouncing along a narrow trail, headlights dimmed, armed escorts spread thin along the ridgeline. The SEALs set their ambush, claymores in position, triggers ready. But before they could fire, the first shot rang out. High angle, clean. One of the lead drivers collapsed, his truck swerving sideways, blocking the trail. Then chaos. More shots, not theirs, hers. Fighters dropped before they even knew where the rounds came from. The convoy screeched to a halt. Insurgents scrambled for cover. O'Neill hissed into his mic. "She's taking the shot out from under us. What the hell is she doing?" Latrell felt the conflict knotting inside him. Their mission was simple: destroy the convoy, retrieve intel, get out. But she was here, altering the battlefield, tipping the balance, leaving them exposed if command ever reviewed the after-action. Still, the opportunity was too perfect. "Execute," Latrell ordered. The valley erupted. Explosions ripped through the lead trucks. Gunfire rattled off the cliffs. The SEALs struck hard and fast, driving the convoy into panic. And through it all, her rifle sang from the ridges, cutting down stragglers, silencing machine gun nests before they could open up. Minutes later, it was over. Fires burned along the road. The convoy lay in ruin. And silence returned. McRaven exhaled hard, sweat cutting lines through the dust on his face. "She saved us again." Latrell scanned the ridges. His gut told him she was still watching. They recovered the intel quickly: maps, coordinates, supply lines. Priceless information, enough to cripple insurgent operations for months. Back at the extraction point, as the helicopter blades churned the dust, Latrell lingered. His men boarded, one by one. Then he saw her. Just a flicker of motion on a far ridge. A figure outlined against burning wreckage. She raised her hand again in that brief, quiet salute. Then she turned and disappeared. That night Latrell couldn't sleep. He replayed her every move in his mind. The efficiency, the silence, the choice to stay apart. Who was she now? He found himself studying her file again long after lights out. Alexandra Reynolds, Marine Scout sniper, expert in high-angle shooting, declared KIA, no body recovered. Before her last mission, she had been attached to a joint humanitarian team: doctors, aid workers, volunteers. Ambushed, wiped out. She alone had lived. Latrell stared at her photo, the confident half-smile, the determined eyes that now carried something heavier, something unspoken. The next day, McRaven brought him a rumor. Locals call her the guardian ghost. They say she defends villages when the warlords come, never speaks, never stays, just appears, then vanishes. Latrell absorbed the words in silence. That evening, while the others drank and played cards, he walked alone to the edge of camp. The desert stretched out, endless, indifferent. He whispered to no one, "Why didn't you come back with us?" The answer didn't come from the night, but inside he felt it. She didn't belong to any flag anymore. She belonged to the mountains. And maybe that was the only way she could live with herself. But still, she had saved them, twice, and he couldn't shake the thought that she might not always walk away, that someday those mountains might take her for good. The thought haunted him. And the war kept moving. Weeks later, new orders dropped them into the same valleys once more. And this time, it wasn't an ambush. It was a hunt. Command had caught wind of the guardian ghost. Not her name, not her past, but whispers. A sniper operating without authorization. A rogue element. And now they wanted answers. Latrell's stomach turned as he read the briefing. It wasn't written like an intel tasking. It was written like a target packet. Unknown sniper. Identify, locate, neutralize. He set the paper down slowly. Neutralize. The word echoed in his mind, bitter as bile. Because now the SEALs weren't just going into the mountains to fight warlords. They were going to find her. And maybe to silence her forever. Latrell's hand tightened around the file. His men trusted him to lead them. His command trusted him to obey. But his conscience whispered a question he couldn't ignore. When the moment came, what would he choose? Why would command want her gone? That was the question Robert O'Neill asked as he stared at the mission briefing, his jaw set in disbelief. The file was thin, almost deliberately vague. Unknown sniper operating in sector, unauthorized, possible compromise, locate, confirm, neutralize if necessary. Neutralize. The word cut deeper than the paper in his hand. They all knew who the file pointed to. There wasn't a doubt. The guardian ghost. The same figure who had saved them twice, who had turned impossible odds into survival. And now she was the target. The room was heavy with silence. McRaven broke it first, his voice low but edged. Orders are orders. Latrell's eyes flicked up. Are they? O'Neill slammed the folder shut. Come on, sir. You saw her. She's not the enemy. Without her, we'd be body bags right now. That doesn't change the fact that she's out there, operating without sanction, McRaven countered. Command doesn't like ghosts. Rogue shooters turn into liabilities. One bullet in the wrong place, one wrong ally, and we're cleaning up her mess. Latrell didn't answer right away. He looked around the table at his men. Battle-hardened operators, loyal to the bone. But even here, in this circle of steel and silence, he saw doubt flicker. We go to the mountains tomorrow, Latrell finally said. But hear me, our mission is to confirm, not to execute. We're not hunting a threat. We're looking for the truth. O'Neill's shoulders eased slightly. McRaven's expression tightened, unreadable. No one said more, but the weight of what hung between them was clear. The next night they moved. The mountains stretched endless under moonlight, the air thin and sharp. Each step was a whisper on loose stone. They tracked rumors more than footprints, following trails locals spoke of in hushed tones. On the third night they found it. A shepherd's hut, half-collapsed, hidden in the folds of a ridge. But inside, not sheep's wool or tools, empty shell casings, a dismantled scope, a rifle cleaning kit laid out with meticulous care. Her den. McRaven crouched low, scanning the signs. She's been here recently. O'Neill picked up one of the casings. Same distinctive markings. She's watching us. She's probably watching right now. The idea hung in the cold air like breath. Latrell stepped outside. His eyes roamed the ridges, the moon-washed peaks. He felt her there, unseen, deliberate, a presence just beyond reach. Alexandra, he whispered into the night. Not into his radio, not into his men's ears, just into the wind. No answer. But something shifted in the silence, like the mountains themselves held their breath. They moved on. By dawn they had tracked to a narrow valley. Smoke rose in the distance, burning homes, a village under attack. Latrell's instinct screamed, We move now. The SEALs sprinted through the dust, weapons ready. By the time they arrived, the scene was chaos. Warlord fighters poured through the village, torching huts, dragging men and women into the open. Children screamed. The SEALs opened fire, precise, disciplined, carving order out of madness. But then the rifle sang again, not theirs, hers. A shot cracked from high ground, dropping a fighter about to execute a villager. Another, cutting down a man with an RPG before he could fire. It was her, Alexandra, hidden in the rocks, guiding the battlefield with every round. The SEALs fought with her shadow, their movements unconsciously syncing with her unseen hand. The tide turned quickly. The fighters broke, retreating in panic. The village was saved. When the gunfire stopped, only smoke and sobbing filled the air. The SEALs moved through, checking for survivors, patching wounds with what little supplies they carried. And then Latrell felt it, that prickling at the edge of awareness. He turned, and there she was. Half shadow, half light, rifle still in her arms. Her scarf hid her face, but her eyes, those eyes, watched everything. Latrell stepped forward, slow, cautious. "You saved them," he said. Her voice drifted across the space, quiet but steady. "Not enough, never enough." McRaven moved up beside Latrell, his hand twitching near his weapon. "You know command is looking for you." Her gaze flicked to him, then back to Latrell, calm, unafraid. "Command thinks I'm dead. Let them. It's better that way." "You don't have to do this alone," Latrell pressed. There was something almost pleading in his tone now. "You could come back. We could vouch for you, bring you home." Her head shook once, slow. "Home? My home burned with them. Doctors, volunteers, my team. I lived, they didn't. I stay here for them, for the ones who can't fight." O'Neill stepped forward, his voice breaking the stillness. "Then let us help you. You don't have to disappear every time." Her eyes softened just for a heartbeat. "You help by leaving, by not writing my name, by letting the mountains keep their secret." And then, like before, she was gone. One blink and the rocks had swallowed her. The SEAL stood in silence. McRaven was the first to speak, his voice low. "You know what this means, Commander. We can't hide this forever. Command will press harder." Latrell looked back at the villagers, the children clinging to their mothers, the smoke curling from blackened rooftops. "She's not the threat here," he said firmly. "She's the answer." But he knew the truth in McRaven's words. Command didn't tolerate answers it couldn't control. That night, as they pulled back into the foothills, O'Neill spoke what everyone else was thinking. "When the order comes down, sir, if they tell us to pull the trigger on her," he stopped, shook his head. "I won't do it." The fire cracked softly between them. Latrell didn't answer. He didn't need to. Because deep down, every man knew the same thing. The next battle might not be against the warlords. It might be against their own orders. And in that moment, each of them silently chose a side. What happens when loyalty pulls in two directions? The order came down on a gray morning, sharp and clinical as a blade. New tasking, high priority, rogue sniper interfering in operations. Locate, confirm, neutralize. Neutralize. Again. The word carried a finality that made Robert O'Neill's knuckles go white as he gripped the edge of the steel table. The briefing officer continued without hesitation, his voice detached. "Evidence suggests hostile intent. This individual has disrupted multiple engagements, compromised operational security, and could be feeding intelligence to insurgents. Identity unconfirmed. Gender unconfirmed. All we know, highly trained, highly dangerous." Marcus Latrell stayed silent. He could feel his men shifting in their chairs, tension simmering just under the surface. Dangerous, that was the label command had stamped on her. A woman who had saved villages, saved them, twice. McRaven leaned forward, masking his frustration. "Sir, with respect, we've encountered this sniper in the field. Twice. Every engagement has resulted in enemy losses, not ours. If she were a threat." That is not your call to make, the officer snapped. The directive stands, you'll proceed as ordered. The room emptied in silence. Outside, O'Neill spat into the dust. They don't know a damn thing about her, and now they want us to put a bullet in the only person who's actually making a difference out here. McRaven shot him a sharp look. Careful, you say that too loud, someone writes it in a report. O'Neill glared back. Then write this in your report. If they make me pull the trigger on her, I'll put the rifle down first. Latrell listened, his jaw tight. He didn't stop O'Neill, didn't rebuke him, because part of him felt the same fire burning in his chest. That night, Latrell sat alone in his quarters, staring at the mission packet spread across his desk. Coordinates, satellite imagery, suspected sniper positions. He remembered her words in the village, her voice soft but certain. You help by leaving, by not writing my name. He closed the packet, slid it aside, and whispered into the silence, what do I do with you? The mission launched 3 nights later. Helicopters dropped them into the mountains under a starless sky. The peaks rose around them like black teeth, jagged and merciless. Every man carried the same weight, the knowledge that they weren't just hunting insurgents, they were hunting her. O'Neill moved at the rear, muttering under his breath. Feels wrong, all of it, wrong. Latrell hushed him, eyes open. We do the job in front of us, nothing more, nothing less. But his own words tasted hollow. Hours into the patrol, they found signs. Boot prints not local, spent casings with distinctive markings. A vantage point carved into the rock, angled perfectly toward the valley below. She'd been here. O'Neill crouched over the casings, his fingers brushing them like relics. She's not hiding from us, she's warning us. McRaven scanned the ridge line, his jaw tight. Or she's baiting us. Don't forget this is still war. But Latrell wasn't convinced. They pushed forward. By dawn, smoke smudged the horizon. Another village, another raid. The SEALs moved fast, slipping through gullies and dry riverbeds until they had eyes on the chaos. Fighters stormed homes, dragging families into the dirt. Warlords asserting control the only way they knew, through terror. Latrell raised his hand. We intervene. But before the team could even break position, the first shot cracked through the air. High angle, sharp. A fighter fell, then another. Panic rippled through the warlord's men. The Guardian Ghost was already here. Her rifle guided the rhythm of battle like a conductor. The SEALs synced with her tempo, striking from the flanks while her rounds dropped threats they couldn't reach. Within minutes the raiders scattered, the village stood. The silence after was heavy, smoke curled into the sky, children cried softly in doorways, and then she appeared. From the ridgeline, walking down slow, rifle slung across her back, not hiding this time, not running. The SEAL stiffened, weapons half raised. Latrell lifted his hand, stand down. She stopped a few paces away, eyes scanning each of them, steady, unafraid. You shouldn't be here, she said quietly. Latrell met her gaze. Neither should you. A shadow of a smile touched her lips, sad, knowing, but here we are. McRaven stepped forward, tension thick in his voice. Command has eyes on this sector. They know you're real now. They won't stop until you're gone. Her expression didn't change. Then let them come. I'm not leaving these people. O'Neill lowered his rifle completely, almost in defiance of everything drilled into him. You don't have to fight alone. We can work together, coordinate. You've saved us before. Let us return the favor. She shook her head, her hair catching faint in the morning light. If you stay too close, they'll turn on you too. That's how this works. They don't forgive ghosts. Latrell took a step closer, his voice low. You can't keep this up forever. Every legend breaks eventually. Her eyes softened for a moment, just a moment. Maybe, but until then I'll keep the children alive one more night. Sometimes that's enough. Before anyone could answer, she turned, walked back toward the ridges. No one followed. Not because they couldn't, but because something in the way she carried herself told them chasing would only break the fragile balance they all lived on. That night the report went up the chain. Latrell's words were careful, deliberate. Sniper presence inconclusive, enemy forces neutralized, civilian lives preserved. He left out the rest, he left out her. But command wasn't blind. The next morning, a drone feed played on the ops center screen. A grainy image. A lone figure moving across the ridges with a rifle slung over her back. The voice over comms was cold. "This is your target, confirm identity, terminate." Latrell's jaw clenched, his men shifted uneasily. The faceless war far away had drawn a line, and now the SEAL team stood on it. For the first time in his career, Latrell felt the unbearable weight of two loyalties pressing against each other. The flag in one hand, a ghost in the other. And he knew the day was coming when he would have to choose. How do you hunt someone who already saved your life? The question pressed on Marcus Latrell's chest like a weight as the new orders came down. Not vague this time, not implied, explicit. Locate the rogue sniper, confirm identity, bring her in dead or alive. The words echoed in the cramped ops tent, each syllable a hammer against iron. Robert O'Neill shifted in his seat, his jaw tightening until the vein in his temple pulsed. McRaven sat stiff, face unreadable, but his silence said enough. The briefing officer scanned them, his voice clipped and sterile. HQ believes this individual is destabilizing the AO, assisting locals without sanction, interfering with missions. If she falls into enemy hands, our secrets go with her. She's a liability. Treat her as one. A liability. That was how they defined her. Not as the woman who had dragged them out of two certain deaths. Not as the shadow who saved children from slaughter. Just a liability. The tent emptied. Nobody spoke. Latrell stayed seated long after the others filed out. The papers in front of him blurred. He thought of her eyes. Steady, sorrowful, unflinching. He thought of the casing she left him, her silent promise. How could he reconcile two truths? His oath to the flag and his gut telling him the flag was blind. Later, outside by the wire, O'Neill lit a cigarette with shaking hands. "I'm not doing it, sir. They can strip my tabs, lock me up, I don't care. I'm not putting a bullet in her." Latrell looked at him, searching for words that didn't come easy. "You know what disobedience means. Better than knowing I killed the only person out here actually fighting for something pure." O'Neill's voice cracked on the last word, but he didn't look away. McRaven joined them, arms crossed. His tone was colder but no less conflicted. "If we refuse, we fracture the team. If we comply, we fracture ourselves. There's no clean way out of this." Latrell stared at the mountains silhouetted against the fading light. Jagged, immovable, ancient, like they knew every secret buried in the valleys. "She's not our enemy," he said finally, "but to command she'll never be anything else." 2 nights later they moved. The operation was dressed up in clinical language, surveillance and capture of hostile sniper element, but everyone knew what it was, a manhunt. They were inserted before dawn, air cold enough to cut through gear. The mountains loomed, familiar and merciless. O'Neill muttered as they hiked, "Feels like betrayal, feels wrong in my bones." McRaven hushed him. "Doesn't matter how it feels, orders are orders." But the words sounded brittle, as if he was trying to convince himself. By midday they reached the site. Another hut, abandoned but not forgotten, a bedroll, a fire pit still warm, and in the corner a shell casing left deliberately on a rock. "Her mark." Latrell picked it up, his thumb tracing the etching. Not careless, not accidental. "A message." "She knows we're here," O'Neill whispered. No one disagreed. That night they set an observation post on a ridge. The valley below was quiet, too quiet, the kind of stillness that made every shadow feel alive. Hours passed. The men shifted in silence, nerves taut. Latrell tried to steady his breathing. He hated this, waiting for her like she was prey, when every instinct told him she was the hunter. Then movement. A figure at the edge of the valley. Slow, deliberate steps, rifle slung across her back. Sir. O'Neill's hands tightened on his rifle, but not in readiness to fire. In resistance. McRaven whispered, "Target in sight. Say the word, Commander." Latrell froze, his throat locked. He could hear his own heartbeat pounding louder than the wind. Say the word. One word and bullets would fly. One word and the legend of the guardian ghost would end in this valley. But he couldn't. Before he spoke, she moved. Not toward them, past them. Deliberate, almost casual, she knew they were there. She was giving them the choice. Latrell lowered his rifle. "We hold no fire." McRaven turned sharp, tense. "Sir." "I said hold." The team obeyed, and she disappeared again into the ridges untouched. They exfiltrated at dawn. The silence on the helicopter was heavier than any firefight. O'Neill stared at the floor, jaw tight. McRaven avoided everyone's eyes. Back at base, command wasn't satisfied. Target not engaged. Why? Latrell gave the answer flat, steady. No positive ID. Valley was clear. The officer's eyes narrowed. Satellite confirmed movement. Could have been civilian, could have been decoy. Latrell didn't flinch. The officer studied him a long moment, then nodded curtly. "We'll escalate. If your team won't confirm, another will." When the tent cleared, McRaven confronted him. "You lied. You put all of us on the line." Latrell's voice was low, even. "I did what I had to." McRaven stared, then shook his head. "You've tied us to her, whether we wanted to be or not." Latrell didn't answer, because McRaven was right. That night, Latrell stepped out of camp into the barren quiet, and she was there. Standing in the shadows beyond the wire, rifle on her shoulder, not hiding, waiting. He walked to her slowly, each step heavy with questions. "You knew," he said softly, "you knew they'd send us." Her eyes didn't waver. "Of course, they can't tolerate ghosts." "You put me in a position to disobey orders." "No, Commander," she said, her voice calm but carrying something sharp beneath. "I gave you a choice, something command rarely does." Latrell swallowed hard. "How long can you keep this up? Running, hiding, fighting alone?" She tilted her head, almost curious. "How long can you, following orders you don't believe in?" The words landed like a blade between his ribs. Before he could respond, she stepped back, melting once again into darkness. This time she left nothing behind, no casing, no mark. Only the echo of her question. How long could he? The next morning, command announced escalation. Drones, surveillance, a full task force dedicated to hunting the unknown sniper. The guardian ghost was no longer a whisper. She was a target. And Latrell knew, sooner or later they would find her. And he would have to choose, not just between orders and conscience, but between his own men's survival and hers. What happens when a ghost runs out of places to disappear? The question gnawed at Marcus Latrell as he studied the new operation order. No longer a surveillance packet, no longer a vague directive. This was a hammer blow. Joint Task Force, full surveillance net, drones, intercept teams. This time we don't come back empty. Command wasn't hunting insurgents anymore. They were hunting her. Latrell's men read the packet in silence, each line another nail tightening around their chests. Robert O'Neill was the first to speak, his voice raw. "They're sending half the damn playbook after one woman. Doesn't this tell you everything? She's not their enemy, she's their embarrassment. They can't control her, so they'll erase her." McRaven shot him a look sharp but hollow. "She's a rogue shooter, O'Neill. Command sees black and white. You know that, we all do." O'Neill leaned forward, eyes burning. "And what do you see, Will? Because I see the woman who saved my life twice, and I see a file full of lies." The tent fell quiet. Only the hum of the generator filled the air. Latrell closed the folder slowly. Orders are orders, but what we do when the moment comes, that's on us. They moved out before dawn. Helicopters thundered low, dropping them on the ridges where the mountains sliced the horizon. The air was sharp, bitter, cutting through gear. Drones buzzed overhead like unseen vultures. Command's eyes, Command's leash. For 2 days they tracked faint trails, abandoned camps, empty brass, faint footprints that vanished into stone. She was moving, but she wasn't hiding, not fully. It felt deliberate, breadcrumbs left where only they would find them. On the third night they camped in a narrow pass. The moon hung pale above, throwing jagged shadows across the valley. Latrell sat awake, listening to the quiet, too quiet. And then she stepped out of it. No rifle raised, no mask of hostility, just her walking into their firelight like the night itself had delivered her. O'Neill froze, his rifle half lifted then lowered. McRaven's hand twitched toward his weapon, then stopped. Latrell rose slowly. "You shouldn't be here," he said. Her eyes caught the firelight, calm but unwavering. "Neither should you." "You know what's coming," he told her. "I've always known." Silence stretched, brittle. O'Neill broke it, his voice cracked like a plea. "Why not just come with us? We'll cover you, we'll vouch for you. You don't have to keep doing this alone." Her gaze softened, but only for a breath. "If I leave, who protects them? Who holds the line when the warlords return? You know as well as I do, your missions end. Mine doesn't." McRaven's voice was steel. "You're not invincible. They'll corner you, kill you. You can't keep outrunning the machine." Her faint smile held no joy. "Maybe not, but until that day I keep one more child alive, one more family safe. That's enough for me." Latrell stepped closer, his voice low, heavy. "Command has drones in the air, a task force on your trail. They'll burn villages to smoke if it means finding you." Her expression shifted just slightly, pain behind the calm. "Then it's not me they're hunting, it's anyone who dares to stand free." For a moment the fire cracked, the only sound between them. And then movement overhead. The buzz of a drone cutting lower, its red eye sweeping across the valley. She stiffened, looked at them each in turn. "They'll be here by dawn." And before anyone could stop her, she slipped back into the night. The assault came hours later, not insurgents, not warlords. "Command!" Hellos roared in. Floodlights carved open the valley. Armored trucks rumbled down narrow trails. Loudspeakers barked orders in clipped English and Pashto. "This sector is restricted. All unauthorized personnel surrender immediately." The villagers woke in panic, stumbling into the night, children crying. Latrell's SEAL team crouched on the ridge, caught between worlds. Command on one side, the villagers below, and somewhere in the ridges her. "Sir," O'Neill whispered harshly, "they're flushing her out. They'll tear the village apart to find her." McRaven's jaw clenched. "They'll call it collateral, they always do." Latrell stared at the scene below. Soldiers pushing doors open, dragging men into the dirt, searching, shouting. Women clutching children, terror in their eyes. And he knew she wouldn't let this happen. "She's going to strike," he said. As if on cue, the first shot cracked. A spotlight shattered, troops scattered, shouting. Another shot, clean, precise, dropped the lead officer trying to corral civilians at gunpoint. Panic rippled through the ranks. Command had come hunting, but now they were prey. "Unknown sniper," voices screamed over the loudspeakers. "Locate and eliminate." Drones swept low, searching. Floodlights swung wildly. Latrell's men shifted uneasily, eyes on him, waiting. "What's the call, sir?" McRaven asked. His tone wasn't neutral anymore, it was demand. Latrell's chest felt like it was splitting. Orders said one thing, conscience said another, and in the chaos below, a woman fought alone against the weight of an empire. He clenched his jaw. "We move." The team followed without hesitation. They descended into the smoke and shouts, weaving between stone huts and burning lights. Every crack of her rifle echoed across the valley, each one buying villagers precious seconds. Latrell's comms crackled with command's fury. "Delta Team, confirm sniper location. Do your job." He ripped the earpiece out. O'Neill's eyes widened. "Sir." "No more ghosts," Latrell said through gritted teeth. "Not tonight." They found her on the ridge above the village. She was crouched low, firing, moving, firing again, fluid, relentless, a shadow wrapped in steel and resolve. But not invincible. Blood streaked her sleeve. Her breathing came sharp, ragged. Latrell dropped beside her, firing into the chaos below to cover her flank. Her eyes cut to him, sharp with shock. "What are you doing here?" "Even ghosts need backup," he said. O'Neill slid in on her other side, laying down suppressive fire. "Told you, Commander, I'm not pulling a trigger on her. I'm pulling it for her." McRaven hesitated, then knelt behind them, firing disciplined bursts. His silence was its own choice. For a moment the world narrowed to the four of them. Seals and a ghost, shoulder to shoulder, holding a line they weren't supposed to. Floodlights shattered, trucks burned, and above it all drones circled like vultures hungry for blood. She reloaded, hands steady despite the wound. "They won't stop." Latrell met her gaze. "Neither will we." By dawn the valley was fire and silence. Command's task force had pulled back, leaving wreckage and questions behind. Villagers huddled in the ruins of their homes, alive but shaken. The SEALs stood on the ridge, catching their breath, weapons heavy in their hands. She was already walking away, back into the mountains. Latrell called after her, "Alexandra." She stopped, turned just enough that her eyes met his across the distance. "Why do you keep fighting?" he asked. His voice cracked with the weight of it. She held his gaze, "Because someone has to." And then she was gone again, swallowed by the ridges, leaving nothing behind but the echo of her rifle and the knowledge that, for one night, the line between soldier and ghost had blurred. But Latrell knew the truth. Command wouldn't forgive this. The hunt wasn't over. It had just begun. How long can a lie protect the truth? That was the question burning in Marcus Latrell's mind as the helicopter carried them back to base. His men sat in silence, the smell of smoke and cordite still clinging to their gear. Not one of them spoke about what had happened in the valley, not the villagers, not the task force retreat, not the woman who bled alongside them. They all knew the unspoken rule. Some things couldn't make it into the debrief. But Command had eyes, and drones and data streams. The moment they touched down, they were met not with relief, but with suspicion. "Report," the intelligence officer demanded, eyes sharp as glass. Latrell kept his tone even. "Convoy engagement, villagers caught in crossfire, hostiles neutralized, collateral minimized." The officer's gaze narrowed. "Satellite shows sniper activity on the ridge, precision fire, not your signatures, explain." Latrell held the man's stare without flinching. Likely insurgent infighting, warlords turning on each other. The officer leaned forward, his voice a blade. "And yet this sniper only ever kills our enemies, never us, almost as if someone is protecting you." The silence that followed was heavy enough to choke. Finally the officer straightened, expression unreadable. "We'll be monitoring your team more closely from here on. No deviations, no mistakes, understood?" Latrell gave a tight nod, "Understood." Back in the barracks, O'Neill exploded. He slammed his fist against a locker, the clang echoing through the room. "They know, sir. Maybe not her name, maybe not her face, but they know. They'll keep pushing until someone breaks." McRaven sat on the bench, hands clasped, head bowed. "And when they break us, what then? Court-martial. Black sight. We've seen what happens to operators who cross the wrong lines." Latrell said nothing. He unzipped his pack slowly, deliberately. At the bottom, hidden beneath his gear, lay the shell casing she had pressed into his hand weeks ago, a silent reminder, a signature. He picked it up, rolled it between his fingers. They won't get her from me. McRaven looked up, eyes sharp. Then they'll get her from someone else. O'Neill's voice broke the tension. Not if she disappears first, for good this time. Latrell frowned. She already disappears. Not like that, O'Neill said. I mean vanish. Out of the AO, out of this war. If she stays here, they'll pin her down eventually, no matter how good she is. The words hung heavy in the air, because they all knew the truth. Even ghosts bled. That night, Latrell slipped out beyond the wire. The desert stretched endless under the stars, cold and merciless. She found him first. A shadow emerging from the rocks, rifle slung across her back, scarf hiding half her face. You shouldn't be here, she said softly. Latrell gave a bitter smile. You always say that. Because it's always true. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. They know, maybe not everything, but enough. If you keep firing in these valleys, they'll catch you. It's only a matter of time. Her eyes didn't waver. Then my time ends, everyone's does. You don't have to let it end like this, he pressed. Come with us. We'll find a way, new papers, a new name. You could start over. She shook her head slowly. Start over where? Behind a desk, in a house with quiet walls. My war doesn't stop when yours does, Commander. These people, they're all I have left. Latrell swallowed hard. Then let us protect you, at least once. Let us carry the weight for a change. For the first time, something cracked in her eyes. A flicker of exhaustion, of longing. You don't understand, she whispered. The moment you carry me, they'll cut you down too. You're soldiers. You still belong to the machine. I don't. She turned to leave. Alexandra. She paused. Latrell's voice softened, almost breaking. Why keep saving us if it only puts you in the crosshairs? She looked back, her eyes catching the starlight. Because maybe one day, one of you will remember what it means to fight for more than orders. And then she was gone again, swallowed by darkness. The next morning, command summoned them for debrief. The officer slid photos across the table, grainy drone stills, a figure on the ridge, long hair visible beneath a cap. Who is she? The officer asked. The silence was a vice. McRaven shifted, his jaw tightening. O'Neill looked at Latrell, his eyes a plea. Latrell picked up the photo, studied it, then set it back down. Can't confirm. Could be decoy. Could be insurgent disinformation. Whoever she is, she's not our asset. The officer's gaze was ice. You'll find her, or someone else will, and when they do, there won't be questions anymore, only answers. Back in the barracks, O'Neill broke the silence. We can't keep this up. We either give them something or, he trailed off. Or we betray her, McRaven finished. His tone was flat, but the weight of it landed like a stone. Latrell sat on the bunk, staring at his hands. The lines in his palms felt carved deeper now, like every choice had left a scar. She won't stop, he said quietly, and neither will they, which means we're running out of time. O'Neill leaned forward, voice tight. So what's the play, sir? Do we keep covering for her until command tears us apart, or do we find a way to get her out before the hammer falls? Latrell's silence stretched. He felt the war inside him, duty versus truth, orders versus conscience. Finally, he looked up, eyes steady. We don't betray her, not now, not ever. If this is the hill I fall on, so be it. The room went quiet. For the first time, McRaven didn't argue. He just nodded slowly, like a man resigning himself to a storm he couldn't outrun. That night, Latrell dreamed of the ridges burning, of drones circling, of a lone figure standing against an endless tide. And when he woke, he knew the dream wasn't far from the truth. The guardian ghost was out there, still fighting, still saving lives in silence. But the walls were closing in. And the next time their paths crossed, it wouldn't be chance. It would be the end game. How does a legend end? The question hung like a storm cloud over Marcus Latrell as he stood in the command tent, listening to words that felt like a death sentence. Task Force Bravo has her pinned. Grid 75 Alpha, multiple drones confirm. She won't slip through this time. The officer's tone was calm, almost satisfied. You'll move with Bravo at dawn. Objective, confirm, capture, or kill. Capture or kill. Latrell's chest tightened. His men sat around the table, their silence louder than any protest. O'Neill's fists were clenched white. McRaven's eyes burned, though his jaw stayed locked. When the briefing ended, they filed out without a word. Only when the night swallowed them outside did O'Neill break. They've boxed her in, sir. Too many boots, too many eyes. This isn't a mission, it's an execution. McRaven's voice was hard, clipped. If we interfere, we burn. Command will chew us up, spit us out, bury us deeper than she ever was. O'Neill rounded on him. So what? We just watch them kill her, after everything she's done for us. Latrell lifted a hand, silencing them both. His voice was low but steady. We move at dawn. Until then, no decisions, no promises. But inside, he knew. The decision had already been made. The mountains loomed black against the pale edge of dawn as the helicopters roared them into position. Task Force Bravo was already dug in, armored trucks, heavy weapons, drones circling like hawks. The village in the valley trembled beneath the weight of war. Smoke rose from early shelling. Families clutched each other in silence, waiting for a storm they didn't understand. Latrell's stomach turned. Alexandra wouldn't run, not with civilians at risk. She'd stand, and command knew it. Sir, O'Neill hissed, crouched beside him on the ridge. We can't let this happen, not like this. McRaven's voice was harsh. One wrong move and we're finished. Think of the team. Latrell's eyes scanned the valley, and then he saw her. High on the ridge opposite, half shrouded by smoke, rifle steady, silhouette unshaken. The guardian ghost. She wasn't hiding this time. She was declaring herself. The first shot cracked, dropping a Bravo gunner before he could level his heavy weapon at the village. Another shot, another soldier fell. Precision. Mercy. She was keeping them from slaughtering innocents. Chaos erupted. Bravo forces shouted, scrambled, returned fire blindly. Drones dove low, searching for her heat signature. O'Neill's breath caught. They'll swarm her in minutes. Latrell felt his chest tighten until it hurt. Orders screamed one way, conscience another. He made his choice. On me, he said. His men hesitated, only a heartbeat. Then they followed. They cut down into the valley, weaving through fire and smoke. Civilians scattered, soldiers cursed, gunfire cracked. Latrell's team wasn't firing on Alexandra, but they weren't firing on Bravo either. Instead, they shielded villagers, pulling children from collapsing huts, laying down cover to stop indiscriminate bursts. Every action was a rebellion written in silence. And she saw it. From her ridge, Alexandra shifted fire, syncing her rhythm to theirs, covering them, trusting them. For a few impossible minutes, they fought as one, seals and a ghost, holding back the storm together. Then the drones locked on. Missiles shrieked down, tearing the ridge apart in fire. O'Neill shouted, "No." Smoke and debris swallowed her position. The echo of her rifle fell silent. The battlefield froze. Soldiers shouted triumph, villagers wailed. O'Neill dropped to his knees. Latrell's throat was stone. He wanted to believe she'd survived, that somehow she'd slip through again like always. But the ridge was flame and ruin. And even ghosts bled. They pulled out at dusk. Bravo called it victory. Target eliminated, the officer announced flatly during debrief. Sniper neutralized. Operation successful. The words twisted Latrell's gut. O'Neill stared at the floor, fists trembling. McRaven sat rigid, his silence a shield. When it came time for Latrell's report, he wrote carefully, each word chosen like a bullet. Sniper presence unconfirmed, enemy forces dispersed, civilian casualties minimized. He left the rest blank, because what he carried couldn't be written. That night Latrell walked alone to the edge of camp, the desert wind cold against his face. He thought of her eyes, steady and unflinching. Her words, "Sometimes one more night is enough." And then he saw it. Half buried in the dust by the wire, a single shell casing. Her mark. His breath caught. She wasn't gone, not yet. Somehow she'd slipped through again. A ghost. He closed his fist around the casing, feeling its weight like a secret. When he returned to his quarters, he didn't tell the others. Not O'Neill, not McRaven. Some truths were too fragile to share. Weeks later, rumors spread among the villages of a woman who still watched the ridges, who still fired when the warlords came, the guardian ghost. Soldiers dismissed it as superstition. Command called it disinformation. But Latrell knew. He'd seen her silhouette in the fire. He felt her presence in the smoke, and he held her promise in his hand, a casing that whispered what no report ever could. She was still out there, not alive in their records, not dead in their files. Alive only where it mattered. In the mountains, in the whispers of children, in the silence of men who owed her their lives. Marcus Latrell closed his journal one night with a final thought, written in the margins where no one else would see. Some legends can't be ordered, contained, or erased. They belong to no flag, no uniform, no command. They belong to the silence they leave behind. And sometimes dignity doesn't speak. It simply acts.